Committee. I'm Josh Stanfield. I live in Yorktown, and I'm represented by Delegate Mullen and thankfully Senator Locke. But instead of going through what I was going to talk about, I do want to address one of the questions. I think it was it Senator Favola, about transparency and what's the problem. Essentially, it seems like we have a lot of reporting and the information's there. I've found, as a citizen investigating different issues, that there is data there. But the question of whether or not that data is truthful or accurate is really up in the air. I had one situation with the delegate where there were statements of economic interest that were filed that I pulled and others pulled. And then when reporters went looking for them, they were no longer in the system. Some of us had them, but they weren't in the system anymore. That's one type of issue. Another issue is we had a local state senator do campaign finance filings and call something a contribution, and then many months later, change it to a loan. These are very different distinctions in terms of whether you get the money back. Whether, that was accurate or any of the details of that, we'll never really know. And I want to give you the foundational reason, a quote from the Department of Elections. I found contributions that I knew were off and asked, what's the issue here? What can we do about this? And here's what the Department of Elections told me, quote, "We don't police or audit reports, all right? If a discrepancy is brought to our attention, we refer the person to the Commonwealth's attorney in the locality that it occurs." So any citizen, anyone who might even know that something is not true the way it's been filed, really has no recourse unless you want to go to a Commonwealth's attorney who are partisan inherently in Virginia and are unlikely to go after fellow politicians. And so you're just sort of stuck and wondering, does anyone look at this data at all? How much of it is true or not? When you go to VPAP, sometimes things are reported from the original documents and they're not. And there's just this question of, where's the real data? It would be great if the state had an entity that we could trust in terms of the data. Now, there are a couple other sort of obscure but stranger issues I've run across that might be of interest to you, one of which has to do with conflicts of interest in stocks. We've heard about problems with PPP loans and people having stocks in pharmaceutical companies at the federal level. But in Virginia, I think the House has Rule 69. The Senate, I don't know about now, but it used to be, I think, Rule 56 that has to do with conflicts. When we think back to the rate freeze bill in 2015 with Dominion, there were plenty of legislators who held Dominion stock who didn't go R69, didn't stay out of that vote. And that's another question. I don't know how much it's under your purview, but it's important to wonder, does this even matter? Do these rules even matter if they're not exercised? And I'm trying to think if there's anything else you brought up. I did ask Senator Peterson this year. I did a FOIA request about his communications with Michael Bills, employees. And the senator reminded me that, in fact, members of the General Assembly cannot be FOIA'd. Now, I disagree with that interpretation of the law, but this is what happens when citizens are trying to get answers around these questions. Stonewalled, sorry, we don't do audits. Sorry, you can't FOIA me. And then it's just sort of, well, all we have is you. And the reason we only have you is because the governor, Northam, ran on banning corporate contributions, limiting contributions to $10,000 apiece. Nothing happened under his administration. It went away as an issue, right? And now here we are in another gubernatorial. Terry McAuliffe, Glenn Youngkin, I don't think either of them have anything about this issue on their websites. They're not campaigning on it. So, I think we're left with you. The General Assembly is supposed to represent us. And, I was hoping any of you could address at some point what it is you think you're doing here. Are you going to be operating as a de facto conference committee on Delegate Simon's personal use ban? That's a possibility. Are you actually looking to do comprehensive reform? Or are you doing what a commissioner from the Wilder Commission several decades ago told me would be the case here, which is, well, Josh, they're setting up a commission, so what do you think is going to happen? That in itself is a method of kicking the can down the road. So I would hope that, that you could sort of tell us what you really think you're doing here, what you believe you can get out of this realistically, and that would at least reassure the public and help us vote, in the General Assembly and the statewide elections this year with this issue in mind for those people who really do care about it. So, thank you.
Thank you.